Welcome to the Sunday service, the first one after the winter recess. We had last Sunday we had celebration of the birth of Swami Vivekananda. His birthday this year fell according to Hindu lunar calendar on January 6th. It was a weekday, so we celebrated it on a weekend, on a Sunday last week. To share the thoughts of Swami Vivekananda, this topic has been chosen: worship of the living God. Swami Vivekananda laid a great emphasis on loving and serving our fellow human beings. And he said that that is the real worship of God. The poem was being read from the original Bengali to a friend. The last line says, "Where do you search God? Leaving all this, what you see in front of your eyes. Love them, and that is the service of God." There was a story. A person was there who was very kind-hearted, and he used to help human beings, love humanity. One day he sees in a dream, Angel has come. And Angel had a paper in her hand. The gentleman asked, "What is that paper?" Angel says, "I have a list of the people who love God." Then the gentleman says, "But that will not have my name. I don't think I'm a lover of God. I love human beings." And then Angel said, "Do you want to see the list?" And he said, "Yes." The name at the top, the first name was the name of that gentleman who loved human beings. Loving human beings, serving them is loving God. Worship of God has been to have different ways. There are different kinds of persons. Crudest of mankind worship ghosts, demons, spirits of their forefather, serpents, etc. Why do they worship? Why worship? Because they feel these beings are greater, more powerful than themselves. And in the language of Swami Vivekananda, and so limit their freedom. They worship them in order to be saved from them. Why do people worship? There are two reasons to worship any being whom they consider higher, greater, more powerful. Of course, when one thinks is the most powerful, that is God. There are two reasons. One is fear, another is love. So here, the crudest of mankind worship demons and ghosts because they will disturb them, they will not leave them, they will not allow them to live at peace, And they are afraid of them, so they want to propitiate them, let them be happy, so that we live in peace. Swami Vivekananda said, we worship God because we seek freedom. The one purpose of our endeavor in the world is search for freedom. Those who worship, they search freedom. Those who do not believe in God, ultimately they also seek freedom. Freedom from wants by procuring the things they think they need that. This all ultimate goal of the soul is freedom. Swami Vivekananda says, the song of the soul is freedom, oh freedom. Freedom, oh freedom. Soul always seeks that. And in the various ways we human beings strive for that. Some go and bow down to God and ask for the things, whatever they need or whatever they feel they lack. Some do not look at the God, but they think there is no God, but still they strive for freedom. They want to enjoy the world by procuring the thing, whatever they like, by amassing wealth. They want to enjoy the world. If we psychologically see why people want to get rich, they want to be free from the notion that they are poor. Those who just amass the wealth, miserly people, they also want freedom. Freedom from the notion that they are not the richest. Those who want to love human beings, whose heart cries when we find earthquake in Haiti. If Swami Vivekananda would have been there, I feel he would have awoke when there was earthquake. Once Swamiji was in Belur, and suddenly he was found at dead of the night, midnight, 1:30 or 2 o'clock, he was pacing in the veranda. One of his brother disciples, Swami Vijnananandaji, he saw and asked, Swamiji, what happened? Are you well? You are not sleeping at this time? He said, patient, he used to call Vijnanandaji, his name was Prasanna, Hari Prasanna is called patient. Patient, I feel a great pain in my heart. Something somewhere in the world has happened that there has been a casualty of human beings. Many people are suffering, and I feel that something happened. Next day, the newspapers were found that there was a big earthquake in South America somewhere, and many people died in that. That was the heart of Swami Vivekananda. The seismograph, artificial, mechanical, it was the living seismograph. Wherever humanity suffered, there was Swami Vivekananda. So another worship is worship out of love. We worship God. We want to come to God. Why? Because of love. Even we want to, once one lady came to Sri Ramakrishna and she said, I am not able to think of God. Then Sri Ramakrishna asked, when you try to think of God, what thoughts come to your mind? She said, I think of my young nephew. Whenever I try to think of God, the thought of nephew comes to my mind. There was love for that nephew. And Sri Ramakrishna said, you don't have to think of God. Think of that nephew, knowing that God is in that nephew of yours. Think of your nephew as the manifestation of God. That meditation is worship. What we do in worship? Worship is nothing but pure love. When we give, we, without any thought of return, we just want to give, offer. That becomes worship. If we love another human being just for love's sake, and do not want anything, do not demand anything, do not seek anything in return, that will be considered as loving human beings. There have been various concepts of God. The most common concept is God is great power that controls our fate, controls His creation, which is the whole universe, and lives somewhere beyond this creation. If He is pleased, we will live in peace in this world, and if we do whatever God wants us to do, after death, we will go to the place which will be His kingdom. That is the most prevalent thought of God. That's why we worship God, because we want to please Him so that we live in peace and happiness and good health in the world. And we all know that we are going to die one day. After death we want to be like this, as we are here peaceful and happy, we want to after death also the same way. There are other concepts of God also. When God is considered as our own soul, who is not separate from us, and that God is worship of that God is pure love for that God. He is inseparable from us. How to find that God who is not seen? So we worship God in different symbols. God is not seen, so we make a cross, or have a symbol of Om, or have a symbol of Kaaba, which is designated by moon and star, or various symbols of God every religion has. And there are symbols also like eternal incarnations, like Shiva, Vishnu, or a concept that there was Jesus who looked like this, he had a beard, like this. Jesus, form of Jesus has been thought. We thought Jesus would be looking like that. There was no photograph of Jesus. And in some religions you cannot think of the prophet having any form. If you think that he had this type, he might be this kind of person, so you will be said you are harming the cause of religion. And God is worshipped through these symbols. There is the concept of Shiva, all-powerful, peaceful, ever meditating, having all the powers to grant whatever you seek. And how to worship, how to please Him. Worship Him in a stone. Stone as a symbol. How to worship? Offer flowers, offer water, offer leaves, and He will be pleased. And He will grant you the joy you seek. Ultimately we seek joy. We may seek the things, but ultimately we seek happiness through those things which we acquire. That is what generally we worship. Worship God, go to the church, or go to the temple and worship some symbol of God through prayers, through songs, through ritualistic worship, and take prasad, and we think God is pleased with our worship. That has been the regular way of worshipping being. Sri Ramakrishna gave a new turn to this. He said, if God can be worshipped through a symbol, through an image, through an idol, why can't He be worshipped in a living human being? Living human being, the God resides in that as the consciousness. If God is the pure consciousness, pure awareness of consciousness pervading everywhere, is He not most manifest in the living human beings, in the living creatures? Why can't we worship human being? That's Sri Ramakrishna elevated the human being to the level of God. Of course, when we find some pure, holy persons, very kind, compassionate, and really very good, then we say he is not a human being, he is a God. He has transcended himself from human weaknesses and raised himself to the level of concept of God that we have. He will be never angry, he will be always helpful, he will be always smiling, peaceful, and that man is like that. That man is manifesting God, we will say. Swami Vivekananda says, that is true, the song was being sung. You see, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, my Guru, who guides me, who helps me, is pure, learned, compassionate. He is like God for me. He is God to me. It's easy to find God in virtuous persons, good persons. Swami Vivekananda says, God is not only in virtuous and good persons. Can you see God in a thief, in a cruel person, in a murderer? If you can worship that God in every human being, you are the real worshipper. The most cruel person has the same God that a very holy and kind person has. Only the God is hidden there, it is not manifested there, but that God in the same amount, in the same degree is there. Manifestation is less. It is not seen. The person himself does not know how to manifest that divinity. But that being is also divine. Worship that God. That is the Swami Vivekananda's philosophy. Nothing that you see is other than God. I worship that God whom ignorant call man. To that level, Swami Vivekananda raises the concept of God. In some traditions, the God's creation, the creatures, are considered very sacred and holy and worshipable. They literally worship animals. The cows, particularly in India, are considered mother and the manifestation of God because they give milk, which sustains children, which sustains people. And God's carriers, vahanas, are associated with some animals. And those are so much worshipped. Shiva has his vehicle, is a bull, big bull. Always in Shiva temple, if you go, they will find a bull sitting outside the temple, always ready to carry Shiva wherever he wants to go. It's called Nandi. And bull is considered as very holy. People, before going to worship Shiva, will worship bull because it is associated with Shiva. So like that, the animals are also thought to be manifesting godliness because they are close to God. Anyone who manifests God is God. In our ritualistic worship, they say one saying, Devo bhutva devam yajet. You want to worship God? First you have to elevate yourself to that godliness. You have to become God. Only then you can worship God. That's why all this purification and thinking of all holiness, the cleansing of all weaknesses, all whatever wrong you had, cleaning the mind, that all rituals, that symbolic rituals to purify the body and the mind before worshipping God. Swami Vivekananda says, man can worship God only in the form of human being. That is the nature of things created. He said that if buffalo was to worship, he has to have a concept of God. It will be a big, powerful buffalo. For us also, the God means, he would be like human being. Though we say without form, but we put all the attributes. He must be very compassionate, infinite compassionate, very kind, all powerful, powerful as we can do the things, we can give when some person comes, that God also can give in a very greater degree what we need as we get from human beings. King, very powerful king, he will be the king of the whole creation. That type of idea we have. We cannot think of God other than in the form of human being. If you don't accept form, it will have all the qualities and attributes that a human being has. So Sri Ramakrishna wanted that God to be worshipped in a living being. There is a temple in India where rats, these mice, are worshipped. Not literally, but they don't disturb them. Because this is considered as an animal associated with Ganesha. In Bikaner, Rajasthan, there is a temple where the mice will run free and people will give some food to them and do no harm to them. It looks bizarre. That's why people worship mice. But if we see deeply, they didn't worship the mice, but the living awareness that is in the mice. And transcending our idea of worship to all living beings. Every life is sacred. Identifying ourselves with the life. Swami Vivekananda at one place says, if you consider yourself as a living being, even as the body, you will have no death if you feel that you are a part of the life of this universe. Till there is one life, you are in that. Just identify yourself not with this body, but with the life that you are. And that life is continuous, the whole life in this universe is one life manifesting as different bodies. Till there is one life existing on this planet, on this universe, in this universe, you will have no fear of death. Just you have to feel that you are life. And if we could feel that we are that pure consciousness that manifests as life, that as manifesting material in this body, then there is no end. Even this universe crumbles and becomes like a pea seed, as the science says. Ultimately, universe will crumble and condense into a small pea seed. Whole universe. Then also, I will not die, though there will be no life, because I am that awareness which cannot be killed. Who will kill the awareness? And this awareness, this consciousness is not dependent on the body, but body is dependent on that consciousness. That consciousness, pure consciousness, which is one with pure love and pure knowledge. Sat-Chit Ananda is indestructible, is inborn, is ever present, immortal, and that we are. That story, Swami Vivekananda said to Sri Ramakrishna, I want to be in Samadhi. I want to enjoy the bliss of God, always meditating on that joy. The greatest joy is the joy of thinking of God and merging in mind into Him. And now and then come to the consciousness of the body so that I can eat a little and again dive deep into the thought of God. Meditate on that. That I want. Sri Ramakrishna said, what a mean-minded person, you are talking like a mean-minded person. I thought you will be like a big banyan tree who will give shade to the scorching souls of this planet, of this earth. People will come to you and sit under the shade of your cooling influence. I thought you would be like that. Yourself accepting the scorching sun and giving shade to others. What Sri Ramakrishna meant in this is worship the living God. Holy Mother Sharda Devi used to serve anyone coming to her village in Jairambati. Sometimes people came from the city, Calcutta, they had a habit of taking tea. And there was no milk in the household, poor woman. But in the early morning in winter, barefooted, she used to go from house to house to search if they have any little milk, so that she could feed her children who have come from Calcutta. She could have said, we don't have tea, we don't drink tea in the morning. This is your urban culture. We in village, we don't drink tea. She could have said easily that. When that's like that, that is the worship of living God. One time, at 2 o'clock at night, one person sees there is some light and one person is doing something on the road. Goes nearer and finds it is Holy Mother. With a small lantern, that kerosene lamp, she was doing something on the road. Approaches near, asks, Mother, did you do something? And why at this dead of night? Goes closer and she finds she was picking up some broken glasses from the road. She says, son, there is a bottle was broken on the road and people walk barefoot here. If they walk, they will hurt themselves. Tomorrow morning people will come. And to remove that, I have come to do this. That is the worship of living God. Swami Vivekananda says, if I consider myself greater than the ant that crawls on the ground, I am ignorant. All life is one. All life is sacred. Every living being is a symbol of God. And not only symbol, it's a carrier of the godliness. Somewhere manifested, somewhere unmanifested, somewhere completely hidden. In the wicked, in the evil, it is hidden. In the ants and rabbits, it is not manifested. In a virtuous person, that godliness manifested. But it is the same God that resides in all. The worship of God is loving every living creature. Every human being, how to love them? Loving as ourselves. When Jesus asked, love your neighbors as yourself, then he says, worship the living God. In a different language, he said the same thing. I may have to be born again and again, Swami Vivekananda says, because I have fallen in love with man. He loved human beings so much. Before he came to the West, he was wandering in India as a mendicant and met one of his brother disciples in Mount Abu. And Swami Vivekananda embraced him and says, Hari Bhai, brother Hari, after doing so much of this thing, I cannot understand anything of your religion. What really religion is. What we really seek through practice of religion, I do not understand that. But Hari Bhai, my heart has expanded enormously. And I have begun to feel, having the feeling for human beings. That love had grown in his heart. What Swami Sri Ramakrishna had blessed, I thought it was like a banyan tree. Swami Vivekananda had become that banyan tree without his knowledge. And he said, I don't know of your religion, what it seeks, how it asks to worship. I don't know any of this. What is its goal, I don't know that. But I have begun to feel enormously for human beings. That was the worship of living God. People asked Sri Ram Swami Vivekananda does not Hinduism say that oneness is the reality and many is ignorance? And worship is to seek that oneness. Swami Vivekananda replied, yes, that is true. Seeking oneness, reaching to that oneness is the goal of Advaita. Yes, and what Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and I have added to this is that the many and the one are the same reality, perceived by the same mind at different times and in different attitudes. This many is not just Maya and illusion. It is the same God, that one which seems as many. Worshipping that one through meditation is the same as loving this many through our service, through our prayers, through our approach. How can we worship the living God? Worship, as I said, is love. Pure, unselfish love which doesn't want anything in return, just seeks to give and prays for welfare. That is love. Love in that way is worship. When we worship God, it is we want to increase love for Him. We want to think of Him, we want to be with Him, we want to be like Him. That is the real purpose of worship. And in the living beings also, if we could worship human beings without anything in return, that is the worship of living God. How do we worship? We don't worship living beings with flower and candle and incense. We don't need, as symbolic that there have been there. Swami Vivekananda himself worshipped a Muslim girl in Kashmir with flowers and incense, making her to be the veritable symbol of Divine Mother. But worshipping the living God will be through love. How do we worship? If we can really love the person and do not blame. When Holy Mother says, don't find fault with others, that is worship. Love all beings, that is worship. Ma viddisha vahe, may I not cavil, may I not hate other. That is the worship of living beings. Always saying, if we say that person is defective, that has selfish motive, that has different kind of thought, if we accuse other person, we are not worshipping the living God. We are going away from the worship. When I am demanding from something that you should behave with me like that, we are going away from the worship. No demand, no accusation for anything. When we complain against that, that person came and he looked that way. Complaint against some person. That is also going against the worship of living God. Can we feel all beings as my own? Whole life in this universe as my own? That is the real worship. Let me finish with Swami Vivekananda's theme. Get rid in the first place of all limited ideas and see God in every person, working through all hands, walking through all feet, and eating through every mouth. In every being He lives, through all minds He thinks. He is self-evident, nearer unto us than ourselves. To know this is religion, is faith. May it please the Lord to give us this faith. When we shall feel that oneness, we shall be immortal. We are immortal even physically, one with the universe. So long as there is one that breathes throughout the universe, I live in that one. I am not this limited little being. I am the universal. I am the life of all the sons of God. I am the soul of Buddha, of Jesus, of Muhammad. I am the soul of all the teachers, and I am the soul of all the robbers that robbed, and of all the murderers that were hanged. Stand up then. This is the highest worship. You are one with the universe. That alone is humility, not crawling upon all fours and calling yourself a sinner. That is the highest evolution when this veil of differentiation is torn off. The highest creed is oneness. I am so and so is a limited idea, not true of the real I. I am the universal. Stand upon that and ever worship the highest through the highest form. For God is spirit and should be worshipped in spirit and in truth. Through lower forms of worship, man's materialistic thoughts rise to spiritual worship, and the universal infinite one is at last worshipped in and through the Spirit. That which is limited is material. The Spirit alone is infinite. God is Spirit, is infinite. Man is Spirit, and therefore infinite. And the infinite alone can worship the infinite. We will worship the infinite. That is the highest spiritual worship. How grand these ideas are, and how difficult to realize. I theorize, talk, philosophize, and the next moment I come up against something and I unconsciously become angry. I forget there is anything in the universe but this little limited self. I forget to say, I am the Spirit. What is this trifle to me? I am the Spirit. I forget it is all myself playing. I forget God. I forget freedom. Sharp as the blade of a razor, long and difficult and hard to cross is the way to freedom. The sages have declared this again and again. Yet, do not let these weaknesses and failures deter you. The Upanishads have declared, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. We will then certainly cross the path, sharp as it is, like a razor, and long and distant, and difficult though it be. Man becomes the master of God's responsibility, and demons. No one is to blame for our miseries but ourselves. Do you think there is only a dark cup of poison if man goes to look for nectar? The nectar is there and is for every man who strives to reach it. The Lord Himself tells us, give up all these paths and struggles. Do thou take refuge in me. I will take thee to the other shore. Be not afraid. We hear that from all the scriptures of the world that come to us. The same voice teaches us to say, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. It is difficult, all very difficult. I say to myself this moment, I will take refuge in Thee, O Lord. Unto Thy love I will sacrifice all, and on Thine altar I will place all that is good and virtuous. My sins, my sorrows, my actions, good and evil, I will offer unto Thee. Do Thou take them, and will never forget. One moment I say, Thy will be done. And the next moment something comes to try me, and I spring up in a race. The goal of all religions is the same, but the language of the teachers differs. The goal is to kill the false I, so that the real I, the Lord, will reign. That's what Swami Vivekananda says. That real worship, you cannot worship God unless you worship the living human beings. Jesus said, you have come to the altar to offer flowers, but had dispute with your brother, your flowers will not be accepted by God. Go and amend your irregularity with your brother. Have peace of mind, and only your flowers will be accepted. And highest worship, Swami Vivekananda says, is the loving human beings. Unless you love all the beings that in front of you are there, your worship is incomplete. And when you are able to love others as your own soul, treat every other being as your own soul, that is the real worship. Let us try that. With the grace of God, as Swami Vivekananda says, we will get the nectar, cup of nectar is there, and with the grace of God, we will settle it.